In the vast gallery of human history, no figure is more instantly recognizable than Jesus of Nazareth. We see him in our minds, sculpted by 2 millennia of art, theology, and tradition. We picture the serene infant in the manger, a divine light in a humble stable, the charismatic teacher on a Galilean hillside, his words captivating thousands, the miracle worker calming storms and raising the dead. We see him with his chosen 12, the disciples who left everything to follow him, and we see him in his final hours, a solitary figure on a cross, bearing the weight of the world's redemption. He is the Messiah, the Son of God, the Word made flesh. But these iconic images, as powerful as they are incomplete. They omit a group of people who stood closer to him than any disciple, who knew him longer than any apostle. They are the figures perpetually left in the shadows of the nativity scene, the ones who are never painted into the Last Supper. They are his own family, his mother, Mary, who pondered these things in her heart, and his sisters, whose names are lost to history, and, most critically for our story, his 4 brothers, James, Joseph, Simon, and Jude. These men are at the center of one of the most astonishing, uncomfortable, and ultimately inspiring secrets of the New Testament. It is a hidden family drama, a story of profound and stubborn disbelief that turned into a world-altering faith. For the majority of Jesus' life, the very men who shared his bloodline, who ate at his table and slept under his roof, did not believe him. They were not his followers. They were his critics. They were embarrassed by him. At one point, they were so alarmed by his behavior that they concluded he had lost his mind and set out to take him by force. This is the story we will uncover today. We will step past the hallowed images and into the gritty, complicated reality of a first-century Jewish family in the pressure cooker of Roman-occupied Galilee. We will dissect the powerful cultural forces of honor and shame, the fervent political expectations for a Messiah, and the universal human dynamics of sibling rivalry and skepticism that blinded them to the divine reality in their midst. So, stay with me on this journey. We will explore the depths of their rejection, the agony of their guilt, and the single private encounter with the risen Christ that shattered their unbelief forever. We will witness how these first skeptics were transformed into foundational pillars of the very church they once scorned. This is the story of how Jesus' own brothers became the most powerful and unexpected evidence for the truth of his resurrection. To truly understand the secret of Jesus' brothers, we must first immerse ourselves in their world. First-century Galilee was a land of breathtaking beauty and brutal tension. The rolling hills, lush in the spring, baked brown in the summer, surrounded the brilliant blue harp of the Sea of Galilee. It was the land of farmers, fishermen, and craftsmen, but it was also a land under foreign domination. The eagle of the Roman legions was a constant, ominous presence. Roman taxation, collected by fellow Jews known as publicans, was a source of constant friction and economic hardship. The Pax Romana, the Roman peace, was a peace kept at the point of a sword, and the memory of rebellions brutally crushed was fresh in the collective consciousness. This political oppression created a spiritual pressure cooker. Messianic expectation was at a fever pitch. For centuries, the prophets had spoken of a coming deliverer, a son of David, who would restore the throne of Israel. But the popular imagination, fueled by desperation, had largely edited these prophecies into one specific image: a warrior king. They yearned for a political Messiah who would rally the nation, drive out the hated Romans, cleanse the land of pagan influence, and establish a new golden age of Israeli sovereignty with Jerusalem as its capital. This expectation was the lens through which all religious figures and movements were viewed. Every prophet, every healer, every charismatic teacher was assessed against this political template. Will he lead us against Rome? Into this volatile mix, we must add the powerful social forces that govern daily life, none more potent than the culture of honor and shame. In the ancient Near East, identity was not individualistic, as it is in the modern West. Identity was collective. You were a son of your father, a member of your family, a resident of your village. The actions of one individual brought either honor or shame not just upon themselves, but upon their entire family and community. Honor was a family's most precious commodity, more valuable than wealth. It was maintained by conforming to social expectations, upholding tradition, and showing proper respect to elders and authorities. Shame was the ultimate social poison, leading to ostracism and ruin. Now, place the family of Jesus into this context. They are a working-class family in a small, obscure town. Joseph, the Tectonthe craftsmanis, a respected man. He earns his family's honor through hard work, piety, and raising his children in the traditions of Israel. The family's reputation in the tight-knit community of Nazareth is their social currency. Jesus, as the prototokos, the firstborn son, carries the heaviest weight of this expectation. He is Joseph's heir, the one who will one day assume leadership of the family, care for his widowed mother, and ensure the family's continued honor through his skilled labor and adherence to community norms. For 30 years, he fulfills this role perfectly. He is Jesus, the carpenter, Mary's son. He is known, predictable, and respectable. But then, he walks away. He abandons the family trade, a shocking dereliction of his firstborn duty. The economic and social burden of the family now falls squarely on the shoulders of the second son, James. This act alone would have created tension and perhaps resentment. Then, Jesus begins a public ministry that seems designed to systematically dismantle his family's honor. He consorts with the ritually unclean tax collectors, prostitutes, lepers. He breaks Sabbath traditions by healing on the holy day. He openly challenges the Pharisees and Sadducees, the respected religious authorities, calling them hypocrites and blind guides. To his brothers, watching from Nazareth, every report of Jesus' actions would have been a fresh wave of shame and terror. In their culture, his behavior was not just eccentric, it was socially suicidal. He was making powerful enemies. He was alienating the very people whose respect a family needed to survive. He was bringing shame upon the name of his mother and father. This wasn't just a theological disagreement, it was a family crisis of the highest order. Their skepticism was not born in a vacuum. It was forged in a crucible of cultural pressure, political fear, and a deep-seated, honor-bound desire to protect their family from the catastrophic path their oldest brother seemed determined to walk. The first public explosion of this family tension occurs in the synagogue of Nazareth, a scene of devastating psychological power detailed in Mark 6. Jesus returns home not as a carpenter taking a break, but as a famous rabbi. He stands up to teach in the place where he had learned the Torah as a boy, surrounded by the faces of his lifelong neighbors and relatives. The initial reaction is one of bewildered amazement at his wisdom and authority. But this astonishment, too powerful for their minds to reconcile with the boy they knew, quickly sours. The questions begin to fly, each one a verbal stone intended to put him back in his place. Where did this man get all this? This is a question of source. They are implying his wisdom cannot be from God, so it must be illegitimate, perhaps even demonic. Then comes the most cutting remark. Is not this the carpenter? Not even the carpenter's son, which would have afforded him some of his father's honor, but the carpenter. It's a deliberate social demotion. They are defining him by his manual labor, his ordinary station in life. It's a way of saying, you are a tradesman, just like us. You have no right to this authority. Then they bring his family into it as the final proof of his ordinariness. The son of Mary and brother of James and Joses and Judas and Simon, in a patriarchal society, identifying a man as his mother's son rather than his father's, was a subtle but potent insult, hinting at irregularity. By listing his brothers by name, they were hammering the point home. We know your family. They are nobodies. Therefore, you are a nobody. The Greek text says the people took offense at him. The word is skandalizo, the root of our word scandal. It means to be tripped up, to be caused to stumble. Their intimate knowledge of Jesus, the man, his family, his home, his trade, became the very stumbling block that made it impossible for them to see Jesus the Messiah. This psychological phenomenon, known as cognitive dissonance, was in full effect, Faced with two irreconcilable ideas, the humble carpenter they knew and the divine authority, he claimed the easiest path was to reject the new, challenging information and reaffirm the old, comfortable one. And where are his brothers in all this? They are silent. They do not rise to his defense. They are, in fact, part of the evidence used against him. The scene concludes with Jesus' heartbreaking lament. A prophet is not without honor, except in his own hometown and among his own relatives and in his own household. He draws the circle of rejection tighter and tighter, from the town to his extended family, and finally, devastatingly, to his own home. The family secret of their disbelief was now laid bare in the place where it was most deeply felt. This public rejection was not the lowest point. As Jesus' ministry intensified, his family's alarm grew into a full-blown panic. Mark 3 records the shocking episode where his family, hearing of the massive, frantic crowds and his intense teaching schedule, concludes he is no longer rational. He is out of his mind, they declare. This was not a casual observation. It was a diagnosis, and it prompted them to action. They set out from Nazareth to take charge of him, a phrase implying force and restraint. Their intention was to end his ministry, by compulsion if necessary, to save him from himself and to salvage what was left of the family's honor. This desperate act must be seen through the lens of their worldview. To them, Jesus was not fulfilling prophecy. He was courting disaster. He was speaking of a kingdom, a word that would have sent shivers down the spine of any Jew who knew Rome's intolerance for rival kings. His claims were blasphemous to the temple authorities and seditious to the Roman governor. His brothers were likely not just embarrassed, they were terrified. They believed his path would lead to only one place, a Roman cross, and untold suffering for the family left behind. Their attempt to seize him was a misguided, desperate act of preservation. The most explicit, detailed account of their unbelief, however, is reserved for John's Gospel, chapter 7. It is the time of the Feast of Tabernacles, and Jesus is avoiding Judea because of the plots against his life. His brothers see this not as prudent, but as cowardly. They come to him with a challenge, their words a masterclass in sarcastic goading. "Leave Galilee and go to Judea," they say, "so that your disciples there may see the works you do." This is a jab at his credibility, implying his followers might lose faith if he stays hidden. No one who wants to become a public figure acts in secret. Since you are doing these things, show yourself to the world. This was a cynical dare, born from a profound misunderstanding of his mission. Their thinking was entirely political and worldly. They were operating on the assumption that Jesus' goal was earthly fame and power. Their challenge was based on the popular expectation of a Messiah, a glorious, public figure who would perform signs in Jerusalem, the seat of power, to rally the nation. They were essentially mocking him for his poor public relations strategy. They could not conceive of a Messiah whose glory would be revealed not in a palace but on a cross, whose kingdom was not of this world. John the Apostle, writing with decades of reflection, provides the stark, unambiguous reason for their words, for not even his own brothers believed in him. It is a blunt and sorrowful summary of the deep chasm that separated Jesus from the men who knew him best. The story then rushes towards its brutal climax in Jerusalem. When the final crisis comes, the arrest, the trial, the condemnation, the brothers are nowhere to be found. As Jesus is scourged and forced to carry his cross through the streets, they are not there. As he is nailed to the wood and lifted up between two thieves, they are not there. Their mother, Mary, stands watching, her heart pierced with a sword of grief as prophesied. But her other sons are absent from the record. We can only venture into the landscape of their minds during those horrific hours. The public execution of their brother was the ultimate fulfillment of their worst fears. It was the public disgrace they had tried so hard to prevent. The shame would have been suffocating, but mixed with the shame, there surely must have been a tidal wave of guilt. Their mocking words, "Show yourself to the world," had come true in the most grotesque way imaginable. And then came the silence. The 3 days between the cross and the empty tomb. For the disciples, it was a time of fear and shattered hope. For the brothers of Jesus, it must have been that and more. a time of agonizing self-recrimination, of replaying every cynical word, every dismissive gesture. Their brother was dead, and their last interactions with him had been ones of contempt and disbelief. The finality of the stone sealing the tomb was the finality of their failure as brothers. Then came the dawn of the third day, and with it, the event that changes everything. The story of the resurrection is a story of incredible appearances, but one of the most significant is also the most private. In his rigorous, evidence-based defense of the resurrection in 1 Corinthians 15, the Apostle Paul lists the primary eyewitnesses in chronological order. First, Jesus appeared to Peter, then to the 12, then to a crowd of over 500, and then Paul inserts a staggering detail. Then he appeared to James. This was the turning point. This was the moment the secret of their disbelief was annihilated and replaced with a secret of glorious, terrifying truth. This was not a group appearance where James could have been swept up in collective emotion. It was a private audience. The risen Lord of the universe sought out his skeptical, pragmatic brother. The Bible preserves a holy silence around this meeting. No words are recorded, but we can imagine the scene. James, the dutiful son, now the head of a disgraced family, wrestling with a grief so profound it was inseparable from his guilt. And suddenly, his brother is there. Not a ghost, not a vision, but Jesus, alive, glorified. What could that moment have been like? It was the collision of two realities: 30 years of memory of a human brother, and the undeniable present reality of the divine Lord. It was a moment that would have demanded an instantaneous and total reordering of his entire universe. Every memory, every conversation, every doubt would have been instantly recontextualized in the light of the glorified face of his brother. It was a moment of profound pardon, of unspoken forgiveness for a lifetime of doubt. And it was a moment of commissioning. In this encounter, James the skeptic died, and James the leader was born. The effect of this encounter was immediate and absolute. James, the respected leader among the siblings, would have carried this undeniable testimony to his other brothers. And the proof of their collective transformation is found just a few weeks later in the opening chapter of the book of Acts. As the 120 believers gather in the upper room to pray and await the promise of the Holy Spirit, the guest list includes a remarkable addition. Acts 1:14 states they were all together, along with the women and Mary, the mother of Jesus, and with his brothers. There they are, no longer on the outside, no longer the concerned party trying to drag Jesus away. They are inside, at the very heart of the prayer meeting, united with the apostles. The wall of separation, built with bricks of familiarity, skepticism, and shame, had been utterly demolished by the power of the resurrection. From this moment, the brothers of Jesus do not just become believers, they become central figures in the leadership of the early church. The transformation of James is the most dramatic. This man who once declared his brother insane becomes the revered leader of the Mother Church in Jerusalem. He gains such stature that he is known as James the Just for his unwavering piety. He presides over the first great council of the church in Acts 15, brokering a peace between Jewish and Gentile believers that saved the church from splitting apart. When Peter escapes from prison, his first instruction is, "Tell these things to James and to the brothers." When Paul, the great apostle to the Gentiles, comes to Jerusalem, he makes his formal report to James. He became the anchor, the bridge between the Jewish roots of the faith and its global future, his authority unquestioned. And the other brothers? A casual but illuminating comment from Paul in 1 Corinthians 9-5 reveals their fate. Arguing for his own rights, he asks, "Do we not have the right to take along a believing wife, as do the other apostles and the brothers of the Lord?" This reveals that Joses, Simon, and Jude also became traveling missionaries, dedicating their lives to spreading the good news about the brother they had once rejected. Finally, two of the brothers would give the world enduring testimony in the form of Scripture. The Epistle of James, a masterpiece of practical wisdom that echoes his brother's Sermon on the Mount, is attributed to James the Just. And the short, fiery Epistle of Jude was written by Judas, his brother. It is in the opening salutations of these letters that we find the ultimate proof of their transformed perspective. James does not begin. James, the brother of Jesus Christ, a title that would have given him unparalleled status. Instead, he writes, James, a doulos of God and of the Lord Jesus Christ. Jude does not write, Jude, brother of the Lord. He writes, Jude, a doulos of Jesus Christ and brother of James. The Greek word doulos means more than a servant. It means a bondslave, one who has willingly submitted his entire life and will to a master. The men with the single greatest claim to fame and authority through a family connection utterly rejected it. They understood that their most profound and important relationship to Jesus was not as his brother by blood, but as his slave by grace. Their identity was no longer rooted in their shared childhood in Nazareth, but in his lordship, which was revealed to them in his resurrection. The story of Jesus' brothers, their stubborn, intimate, well-informed skepticism is, in the end, one of the most powerful arguments for the truth of Christianity. These were not strangers easily fooled by clever tricks or charismatic speeches. They knew him better than anyone. They had every reason to be the last people on earth to believe he was God. They knew his humanity. If the resurrection had been a hoax, a myth concocted by the grieving disciples, the brothers of Jesus would have been the first to cry foul and expose the lie. Instead, these ultimate skeptics became ultimate believers. They dedicated their lives to proclaiming his name, and church tradition holds that they sealed that testimony with their own blood. People may die for a belief they think is true, but they do not die for a belief they know is a lie, especially a lie fabricated by their own family. Their journey from the cynicism of John 7 to the servitude of their epistles is a testament to an unshakable intervening reality. They saw something that changed them forever. They saw their risen brother, and in seeing him, they saw their Lord. Their story is a profound message of hope. It tells us that no doubt is too deep, no skepticism too ingrained, no family history too complicated to be a barrier to the grace of God. It shows that faith is not merely an intellectual assent, but the result of a personal encounter with the living Christ. If the Lord could conquer the unbelief in his own household, he can surely conquer ours. The hidden family secret is ultimately not a story of shame, but a glorious testament to the power of redemption. A story that proves the resurrection is a reality so powerful it can turn a mocking brother into a martyred saint. Now that we have walked through this incredible hidden journey, how does it shape your understanding? Does seeing the depth of their skepticism make their eventual faith more meaningful? This story is a cornerstone, a human-level proof for the divine resurrection. We invite you to share your reflections in the comment section below. Your insight may illuminate this powerful truth for someone else. If this deep analysis has given you a new perspective on the gospel story, please give this video a thumbs up and share it. Your support helps us bring these profound biblical narratives to a wider audience. And if you are ready to continue this journey of discovery, to uncover more of the secrets and layers of meaning hidden in plain sight within the scriptures, make sure you subscribe and click on the video that is now on your screen. There is always more to explore. Blessings.